Hey guys, it's Jan, also known as Zen Blaster, and today, as you can see, we're going to be talking about motors, and specifically collecting motors. So I'm just gonna go through with you guys what I have over here in terms of what I've collected. We're gonna go ahead and take a look at what we've got. So we're gonna go bit by bit slowly, and I'll show you guys what I have. I'm not including any of the motors that are new, because you guys can still get them, and they're really not collector's items, at least not yet, unless they phase them out. So first, we're gonna go talk about the atomic tuned motor 15215. These are basically not in print anymore. Mabuchi motors, as you could tell from the M or that logo right there. And these have gone through many versions of the packaging. This is, I guess, as far as I know, the most modern version of it. And I'm actually kind of regretting not having more of these. Think I may have broken in one recently, and yeah, at least I still have two of them, and they're pretty cool. And you can still use them in the Japan Cup if there was ever any need for you to run an atomic tuned motor in the Japan Cup. You can still use these. These are still legal in the Japan Cup. All right, next I have a bunch of these other motors right here, so you could see Torque Tuned Motor Pro. I have about 5 of them. I honestly don't know why I have so many of them. Since basically the Torque Tune 2 Motor Pro has basically superseded this in terms of, not superseded, but like improved upon the performance of the Torque Tuned Motor Pro. This uses less power, but it's, of course, it's gonna be slower than the Torque Tuned 2. And I don't know why I have 5, and that's kind of crazy that I have 5. But these are, as far as you can see, as far as I could tell, these are the only version of the packaging. If anybody knows if there was a different version of the packaging, let me know. Because as far as I know, with the Motor Pros, like the tuned version of these, they really only had one version of it. And as you can see, all of them had the brass pinions that came with it. That's why it would be a bonus. But when you're actually racing with these, you don't really want to use these brass pinions. They will just damage the rest of your gearbox, and you don't actually want that. So let's go in next one. I'm actually looking for more of these. If you let me see. If you look at these, this is the Rev Tuned Motor Pro, the double shaft, and yeah, let me see. Look at that. That's an interesting difference. This one's a lot darker on the right side, and this one on the left is a lot brighter. As you can see, there's some differences too, even in the card. There's some more information over here on the right side on this one, and over here. So I'm not sure what the origins are of these two different motors, but you can see that the packaging is also quite different. Let me see if there's a difference also in the part number. No, the part number is the same as well. So there you go. Now that I've seen this, what I'm thinking is that there's likely a different version of the torque tuned and the atomic tuned as well, because as you can see, there's this one's more of an orange card right there, and then the card on this one is white, and then with the blue and the black, the more normal stuff. And yeah, that's some pretty interesting changes. So yeah, even in the packaging, there's variations on this motor if you're a more serious collector. I know a couple of my friends are very serious collectors. They try to collect as much of the variations as possible. All right, so this is the next one that we're going to talk about, the Hyper Mini Motor 15001. And as far as I know, this is the most modern version of it that had been printed. As you can see, 87 to 2012 Tamiya. And one of the most interesting things about this motor is that it is still legal in the Japan Cup. If you look at the rules, this is one of the motors that is still approved. Hyper Mini Motor is still approved in competition. So if you ever need to go slightly slower than an atomic tuned, you could probably use this Hyper Mini motor because they're very similar in performance. And as you can see, it's also a Mabuchi motor. So these are a little bit harder to get now. They don't use Mabuchi anymore in terms of what do you call it, as a manufacturer. Okay, next, before we get on to that one, the Japan Cup motors. Okay, so let's talk about this one real quick. The Hyper Dash 2 Japan Cup, right there from 2013. And these are good for collecting because of the fact that they're still raceable, right? One of the most interesting things about the Hyper Dash 2, just like the Hyper Mini motor, even though that it's not in print anymore, is that it's still allowed to be used in the Japan Cup, as far as you can see. If you look at the rules, it's still one of the motors that is listed in the approved list of motors that you could use. So let's say you're having issues on your races, and your light dash is kind of too slow, but your Hyper Dash 3 is too much in terms of power. The Hyper Dash 2 sits pretty close in between both of those motors. It's a little bit closer to the Hyper Dash 3 in terms of performance, but it has slightly less torque. And if you need something like that, then yeah, the Hyper Dash 2 is actually pretty good. So yeah, Mabuchi motor again, another one of those motors that's out of print. They don't make these anymore. So if you run into that issue where you need something in between, yeah, definitely use the Hyper Dash 2 still. Those are a little bit hard to find. Now we have a series of these Japan Cups. I've organized them by year. The 2015, these are all basically on the same category of the Hyper Dash 3, what do you call it, Japan Cup motors. And one of the cool things about them is that it's a 9 number. That means they don't reprint them, as you can see, because they're limited to the year that they were produced. And they're all different in terms of the way they're, what do you call it, presented. And yeah, so the 2015 is going to look distinct from the 2016. This one has a red, what do you call it, label. The label on the 2016s are different on both the, what do you call it, the double shaft and the single shaft version. This one's green, as you can see, this one's black, and of course the card is completely different as well. The same with the 2017. The 2017 is using blue label on the single shaft. I only have 2 of the single shaft. I think I ended up doing a break-in on 1 of my Hyper Dash, or maybe 2 of my Hyper Dash 3 Motor Pro, basically. I kind of regret doing that. I don't know, maybe if I could still find them for not too ridiculous in terms of price. I remember buying this in Japan for, as you can see, 340 yen, and that's even lower than the MSRP right there. And yeah, the label is blue on the motor themselves, and of course, as you can see, the packaging is quite different, and they're all fairly unique. Now, the good thing about these motors is that, as you know, they will not be reprinted. Because they're exclusive to the year that they were made. 2018 is going to be relegated to 2018, the same thing. And of course, they redesigned it to make it a little bit more collectible. As you can see, even there, right there, limited edition. Same thing over here, limited edition. Let's look back at the 2013 Japan Cup. I wonder if it says that. No, on the 2013 it does not say limited edition on it, but it has not been reprinted since. All right. So those are fairly good in terms of collecting, because you know that they don't remake them. All right, so we're gonna go and cover the Ultra Dash motor first. There you go. So as you can see, there's 2 different versions of the Ultra Dash that I have here. I think, as far as I know, there are more, and they actually have 2 different part numbers. The original part number is, well, at least the older one that I have is 15140, and the newer version on my left looks like it's from 2002, right there. The part number is different. It's 15307. And yeah, you know, it's another Mabuchi motor. They don't make motors anymore, I think specifically for Tamiya. And there's some differences on the, what do you call it, the end bell. As you can see, there's like a circle over there, right there on this side, and then the same thing is happening over on this side as well. But there's some other letters over here that are showing up here, M, and then I think that's a, what is that? Is that an E or an F or something? Yeah, another letter, which is not actually reflected on the newer version of the Ultra Dash motor. So even on like opened Ultra Dashers, you could kind of tell what year it was from. This one's a lot older, from 1995, and rumor has it that the older Ultra Dashes are a little bit more powerful, or there's a specific version for that I've heard of. It's like a black label Ultra Dash is what they're called, and that's apparently the best one. If you can find that one, that would be actually pretty good for competition, which is the Ultra Dash is quite popular as a motor at the Philippines when they're racing it. Okay, so now that we've covered the Ultra Dash, let me move these aside. We're going to talk about the Mach Dash. There you go. This is another Mabuchi motor. You can see it on the label right there, Mabuchi. And this is another one that was, I think, released at the same time as this other Ultra Dash right there. Item number 15131 on the Mach Dash. This is basically a, in terms of performance, I think this is kind of close to the Sprint in terms of RPM. A difference between this and the Sprint is that the, what do you call it? The brushes on the Mach Dash are actually like cheap brushes. They're like the Hyper Dash 2 brushes. They burn quite quickly. They're like the cheaper brushes. They're like the stock motor brushes that you would see on them. But yeah, it's one of those motors where it's actually quite that's quite powerful, and that's one of the problems that it had. The what do you call it? The motor has a lot more RPM than the brushes could actually take, and that's one of the problems that it actually has in terms of holding it back in terms of how collectible it is. So here you go, the Hyper Dash motor, the first version of the Hyper Dash, famous for the black can. As you can see, the motor has a black metal can instead of the silvery or the dull colored ones. Right here you can see, right, and then the red end bell is probably one of the best color combinations that you could see for motors from back in the day. And this is fairly close in terms of performance to the Hyper Dash 2. It's kind of the same boat. Like if you've got a track where the car is having issues, Light Dash is a little bit too slow, and the Hyper Dash 3 is a little bit too much in terms of power. The Hyper Dash sits in between them. This is very similar in terms of performance as a Hyper Dash 2. I honestly don't know why they retired the Hyper Dash. Maybe because it was, I don't know, a little bit more expensive to manufacture than the Hyper Dash 2. There might even be an increase in RPM or like performance between the Hyper Dash 2 and the Hyper Dash, this one, the original one. But it's probably because of the, the black can is a little bit more expensive to make compared to one of those chrome cans that the Hyper Dash 2 has right here. So a lot shinier in terms of the can right there. Okay. So this is definitely one of my favorite motors. And then if you're looking this up on eBay, a lot of these motors are like quite pricey now. All right, so here there's two of the motors are basically the same in terms of what they have. These are, as you can see, three jet dash motors, and one of them is different from the others. And from here, can you tell which one's different? it's actually going to be quite hard to do so just from looking at the packaging right here. You actually have to look at the end bell of the motor. So these two motors are, as far as I could tell, basically the same motor. Let's look at the here. Let's look at the end bell. As you can see, the end bell has two copper bushings right there on that side, and of course on this side as well. They both have bushings on that side, so nothing too different. That's probably the most common version of the jet dash that you're gonna see, but this one is a slightly different version of the jet dash. As you can see, the end bell does not have an exposed what do you call it, bushing right there. So you can see here, let's focus. The end bell has a more normal black can, just like the Hyper, not like the Hyper, but the Ultra Dash. You can see the Ultra Dash has just a regular black can, not a black can, but like a black end bell with the vented end bell right there. You can see it's like a big slot, and over here, this is slotted too, right there. You can see the slots right there, and that is not something normal that you're gonna see on the jet dash. The jet dash, as you can see, do not have venting on the more common versions of the jet dash. They don't have venting at all. That's one of the problems with the motor, is that it can kind of overheat. You know, the venting helps a little bit when you're cleaning. And one of the easiest ways to tell, one of the bigger difference in terms of the two, is that the packaging is slightly different on the back side as well. See, you can see this one is a lot more green in terms of the print on the back, even though they're the same part number. And then over here on the left side is more of like a, you know, a black in terms of print. And that's one of the key differences as well too. And from what I've been told, this is a much slower version of the jet dash, but it's a lot more rare. There was, I think this was initially what do you call it, released before these ones, the ones that are more common. They manufactured more of these ones, and these were made by the Johnson electric motor manufacturer, basically. Yeah, and from what I've been told, there's actually other versions of the jet dash too, and this is quite interesting to me. And I've only seen these two, and it's actually finding this one in particular was quite lucky for me. I happened to see one while I was in Japan last year when I was over at Osaka. I found it at one of the shops over there. So basically, this is I think, one of the more impressive parts of my collection. I have, let me see how many is this. I have 12 Hyper Dash 2 in here, and then in addition to that, I have 9 Hyper Dash 2 over here. The eight of the ones over here aren't mine anymore. I've already sold this to one of my friends, so I basically have 13 Jet Dash. But right here, not Jet Dash, 13 Jet Dash. I mean 13 Hyper Dash 2. So here, there's one. There's more over here. Right there, Hyper Dash 2. These are the normal Hyper Dash 2. Right there. I have more. Let me move some of these other motors right there. Yep. I have some more. Quite a lot in terms of Hyper Dash 2. Right there. So you can see 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. The problem with these cases is that they're a little bit hard to pull from. Sometimes you have to tip them over. And then one of my favorite things is actually collecting the old boxes of motors. I have a box of Mach Dash motor right there. Here, take a look. 15131 right there. And then I also have a box of the original Hyper Dash motor. I used to have 4 sealed Hyper Dash motors back in the day. I made the mistake of running them too much. So there you go. So these are even, there's even some differences in terms of the packaging right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then there you go. There's a difference in packaging right here. So I honestly don't know which one is newer, because even the part number is the same right here. As you can see, 15256. And then this is also the same part number, 15256. And if you look at the differences on the motor, not much is different. Pretty much everything is very similar. The end bells are very similar in what they have. Let me see, let's focus a little bit. Yeah, the end bells aren't really that much different from each other, but these are 2 different print runs, as you could see. Yeah. Oh, and the card at the back is different as well right here. That's funny. This is actually showing the gun bluster. That's actually pretty funny. Okay, so this one is a 99. Okay, so there you go. The biggest difference. 1999 Tamiya, and then this was in 2000. So this is actually more modern than the other one. So this one's even referencing the Dangan Racer series, when I'm sure you guys have seen those things. Those are kind of unusual. And then here, let's take a look at these ones. As you can see, I have 12 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And these are all of the more modern versions of the Hyper Dash 2 as well. Okay, so what's the significance? Like I've mentioned it before, the Hyper Dash 2 is actually still usable in the Japan Cup. Yeah, and that's one of the key things in terms of what do you call it, collecting. One of the things that makes parts more expensive than other parts is because of how raceable they are, or how useful they are still if you want to use them. And case in point, this is probably the last 2 motors that I'm going to show you in terms of my collection. Okay, so you can see here the Zen Tuned Motor right there. Quite an expensive motor now, if you can still see it in packaging. I found it in packaging, but the packaging was in bad shape compared to this one, the Turbo Dash motor, and I bought this one loose without the packaging. So the value is going to be quite different if they had the full packaging. In addition to it being sealed, it would fetch a much higher premium. The Turbo Dash is basically the most expensive motor that you can get. If they'd had this in the packaging still, it would have been so expensive. So the difference between the Zen Tuned and the Turbo Dash is that, as far as I could tell, the RPMs are supposed to be very similar. Maybe slightly, maybe the Turbo Dash is supposed to have a little bit more RPM than the Zen Tuned, but the Turbo Dash has the much better brushes. They're basically, the brushes are just like the Ultras and the Jets. They basically have like a what do you call it? The brush, and then there's like blocks, and then the blocks are actually higher quality compared to the Zen Tuned. The Zen Tuned basically have the cheap brushes that kind of look like 2 toothpicks that are touching your motor, and the reason why the Turbo Dash is way more expensive than the Zen Tuned is because it lasts a lot longer than the Zen Tuned. The Zen Tuned basically burns very quickly because of how high powered it is. Right. And yeah, there you go. So this is basically me showing you guys my motor collection. And yeah, if you guys want to get into collecting motors, it's I'm sure you can find them on eBay, but some of the higher end motors like the Turbo Dash and the Zen Tuned are going to be tough to find. Basically, the only way to find them is from other collectors, and they're not gonna sell it to you for a cheap price. It's gonna be expensive. So there you have it, guys. This has been my motor collection video. Maybe I helped you guys figure out if there was some stuff that you guys didn't know about from before. and maybe it'll help you, inspire you guys to do your own collecting. Because I'll tell you this much: I'm gonna keep buying Jet Dash and Hyper Dash 2 and original Hyper Dash as much as I can, because I just love those motors. Oh, what did I just drop? Alright guys, thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for watching. Go race.